So, an overview of the case. On the 13th of June 2021, the USA and EU agreed to suspend tariffs relating to the Boeing Airbus trade dispute. The tariffs were in effect from October 2019 to February 2021 and covered $12 billion worth of traded goods and cost the US $1.6 billion. So, what was the reason behind the dispute? The background behind the dispute was that both the US and the EU subsidised their own airline manufacturing companies. The US was for Boeing and the EU was for Airbus. In 2014, when Airbus sales were overtaking Boeing's, both companies filed complaints against each other stating that they were receiving illegal government subsidies, providing both companies with an unfair competitive advantage. This started a 14-year legal battle. In 2018, the World Trade Organization ruled that Airbus had continued its unfair business practices, even after the legal disputes. And as a result, the US imposed tariffs worth $7.5 billion on the EU goods. In 2019, the World Trade Organization ruled Boeing continued to receive subsidies, and the EU then imposed $4 billion worth of tariffs on USA goods. It is one of the longest running cases in World Trade Organization history. The opportunities for firms and the markets. This agreement between the two parties will be positive for future relations, especially in relation to trade deals. This is also positive for the trade of US-made goods to Europe and European-made goods to the US. This can include Scotch, wine, and cheese. This is significant for US airlines such as Delta, United, and American, who are expanding their fleet with Airbus aircraft due to the decreased purchasing prices. More competitively priced aircraft, both US airlines and European airlines, will assist both aircraft manufacturers and their sales. It is also less counterproductive as the trade disputes negatively impacted US workers, as the production of US-made aircraft is reduced due to the higher import costs of the aircraft parts.
Within this case, there are several negative implications that arise from Airbus and Boeing settling their trade dispute. Although this improves trade relations for the industries involved, specific mining firms like steel and aluminium that seek to enter the US are still facing the 10 to 25% tariffs that left from the Trump administration. According to the Washington Post, these tariffs remained in place due to European mining competition threatening national security. Secondly, China and their economy have been negatively implicated from this deal. China has stated a priority in the last 5 years was to break the duopoly imposed by Airbus and Boeing. From this, the US and EU needed to address the challenges that were posed by new entrants from the common enemy, China. Specifically, evidence would suggest that company Comac and their C919 planes are impacted because the West is playing the political game, as well as trading with Comac's Western suppliers, providing some of the C919's critical components, is now under threat.
Some of the risks and application of international business concepts and theory can be summarised below. Macro-political risk between China. This involves poor leadership by both the Trump administration of the time and the Chinese government, threatening the sustainability of local activities. It could worsen the United States-European Union trade relations. The suspension of these tariffs also raises the hope of US and EU trade relations, as there are other major trade tensions that currently remain between the US and the EU. If this goes badly, this could further damage the already rocky trade relations and enhance political risk and instability. If the suspension of tariffs is proven unsuccessful, there will be greater costs for importers, as without revocation of tariffs, the economy will worsen, rather than provide an additional economic boost. Procedural risk. Procedural risk can include the inability to enforce contracts or doubt about the legal redress due to likely corruption or lack of independence in the judicial system. As both sides have been found to fail at properly implementing World Trade Organization panel rulings on illegal subsidies, both the US and the EU are at risk of increasing their level of political risk as a whole. Ethical implications of implementing illegal subsidies. Ethics is the accepted principles of right or wrong that govern the conduct of a person, profession, or organization. In the case of the Airbus and Boeing disputes, there have been a lack of ethical decision-making by both the internal and external stakeholders. The moral obligation of multinational companies, e.g., payment of tax liabilities or placement of illegal subsidies, can be seen in this case, and these moral dilemmas were not handled in an ethical way.
Even though both aircraft companies benefit from this alliance, both can receive recommendations for this so this trade dispute can never happen again. I would recommend both Airbus and Boeing to build resilient supply chains that don't go through China. Since both companies on their website state they need a lot of parts from around the world, a better supply chain can mean better sustainability and value in the future. But building a supply chain around China minimizes the political risk from threats like trade relations and foreign prosperity imposed from China. For this to never occur again, it would be recommended that both parties obtain political risk insurance. From the graph shown, there is increasing value to the industry worldwide within the last 5 years. If the companies were to stay in the Chinese market, having political risk insurance can benefit them if political instability or unforeseen circumstances in trade cause business interruptions. This would help Airbus and Boeing to be better in control of their assets and in all their international markets, not just China's. Thank you for listening.